The Checkpoint is presented by GM Pharma, the first international multinational pharmaceutical company in Georgia. GM Pharma, to serve those who need it most.
In 2021, the external merchandise trade of Georgia amounted to $14.3 billion. In 2021, the share of the top 10 trading partners by exports in the total exports of Georgia amounted to 77.3%. The top partners were China, Russia, and Azerbaijan. In the same period, the top 10 trading partners by imports were Turkey, Russia, and China. Statistics show that last year copper ores and concentrates reclaimed the first place in the list of top export items. In the second place stands exports of ferroalloys, and the motor cars exports occupied the third place. The top import commodities in 2021 were motor cars as well, followed by petroleum and petroleum oils. The copper ores and concentrates were third in a top import commodity list. Georgian Airways is sold for $150 million. Georgian business brokerage founded by Roman Bokeria, the former director of Georgian Airways, is working to find a new investor for the airline. Airways has been in a process of rehabilitation since December 31 and owes a debt of more than 175 million GEL towards dozens of parties. According to Roman Bokeria, of the legislation, a foreign party cannot own a majority stake in a Georgian national airline. The government of Georgia adopted the resolution about the opening of the Turkish pharmaceutical market. According to the Prime Minister of our country, this decision will significantly reduce prices of medicines. I hope that pharmaceutical companies will import high-quality medicines from Turkey, which will significantly reduce the prices of medicines in Georgia, Irakli Garibashvili said. The Prime Minister also noted that the report on the pharmaceuticals market is finished by the competition agency and relevant recommendations are already sent to both the government and parliament. This is the Checkpoint. I'm David Jalagonia. Here we are with news and analysis on business and economics, and we're ready to start. Electricity consumption in Georgia is going to rise up to 4% this year compared to the 2021 Ministry of Economy reports. Estimated level of consumption is around 40 billion and 300 million kilowatt hour this year. As long as local generation isn't enough to cover our demand, the government already has projected 2.3 billion kilowatt hour of electricity imports from neighboring countries. How should the government and business sector respond to this challenge? We gave this question to the executive director of the Georgian Business Association. Levan Vepladze thinks that in order to construct new power plants and this way get rid of the increasing electricity imports, the Georgian government has to solve problems with local communities in different regions of our country.
Electricity consumption is highly correlated with economic growth, and when economic growth is like two digits figures, then what we have finally is the huge energy and electricity consumption on electricity market as well. And I think that we have a problem, couple of problems regarding local communities, because it's also what we have historically is we could not achieve some consensus with local communities in order to construct hydropower stations, regardless the size of the power station, whether it is 1 megawatt or 400 megawatt like Namakhwani. Local communities has kind of resistance towards these power stations, and we have how to resolve this. Somehow resolve this problem, and what we need is the involvement of the government in these discussions, because it is not sensible and it is not reasonable to have direct communication between investors and the local communities in situation when sometimes we have foreign investors and they are speaking on different languages and they have different mentality, different cultural background, and that's why it creates additional problem and burden on the situation.
It's obvious that investors have problems with local communities, and the latest example is the case of Namakvani hydropower project. Enka, the investor company of Namakvani, has closed its offices in Tbilisi and Kutaisi. As BMG has been informed, most of the company's employees have already left their jobs on the background of the project. Turkish contractor company Enka Renewables notified the government of Georgia that it was terminating the project in the country. The statement published by the company read that the reason for the cancellation of the contract was the violation of the terms and force majeure. Considering the case, our reporter Tamta Jijavadze gave some questions to the Turkish ambassador in Georgia to find out other Turkish companies' plans in Georgia's energy sector.
We encourage Turkish investors continue investing in Georgia in the electricity sector, in particularly diversified fields of renewable energies. And I know that there are a couple of companies who are interested to cooperate with the Georgian government and their Georgian partners. And I do believe that we will see and hear more good news in terms of new investments in wind or in hydroelectricity, and protection of current investments. There are projects which still and can be developed, enhanced, and completed. Enka is one of them. But Enka, Namakhvani, by the way, it's not Enka, of course, it's Namakhvani project. Enka and government of Georgia are talking. We are not part of that conversation. It's between the government and the company. But of course, we would like this issue to be solved in a way where the Turkish company do not suffer losses. And the energy security of Georgia is served, that there will be the electricity production guaranteed for Georgia's future, because I think that is very important.
It takes time to make a decision to invest in the energy sector, especially in Georgia, because there's a list of upcoming reforms in this field. One of them is the Georgian Energy Exchange, a new energy market. We're not alone in the way of implementing new rules. Just a day before, USAID, Securing Georgia's Energy Future program, signed a letter of cooperation with the Georgian Energy Exchange to enhance the governance and regulation of an organized, competitive energy market. USAID Georgia's mission director gives us more information.
The memorandum we're signing today marks will make sure that electricity trading can be a permanent part of Georgia's energy market. That means good news for Georgia's energy consumers, which means basically all of us and the general public here. In the future, it means that competitively traded electricity will mean lower prices for Georgia's consumers and a more steady, reliable flow of electricity. In the big picture, this means that ultimately Georgia's energy security will increase and become more robust. That's good news for Georgia because it means that Georgia will no longer have reliance or excessive overdependence on energy from any single country, regardless of who that country is.
We can proceed with more information about Georgia's partnership with the important organizations like the World Trade Organization, which published the third review of the trade policies and practices of Georgia. According to the organization's report, over the last decade, Georgia's economic growth has been largely positive, and there has been a demonstrated commitment to open markets and further integration into the world. Gennady Arveladze, Deputy Minister of Economy, summarizes Georgia's achievement and its role in this third trade policy review.
It was very important that Georgia undertook third trade policy review, which was very important. We have received more than 235 questions from different member countries, which means that there was an increasing interest about Georgia's trade policy and its implemented reforms. Georgia undertook during last year's important trade-related reforms, which was streamlining to customs procedures, simplifying also customs procedures, and making trade facilitation, integration to the global markets by signing different free trade agreements, regional, bilateral as well as multilateral agreements with different trade partner countries. This made Georgia's trade increase during last year's, and Georgia managed also to introduce different trade-related reforms, which made Georgia's economy more transparent and more resilient.
Back to the Georgian business environment. As you know, this year is quite challenging for gambling industry. They have to get familiar with the new tax system and many more decisions the Georgian parliament has already adopted. Georgi Sakadze covered this topic for you. He prepared a very interesting interview to give you a whole picture of gambling business and its new frame in Georgia. Hi, George.
David, hi. My pleasure to co-host the Checkpoints or report for you. All the best to Elena. Hope to see her on air next week. Our viewers and followers are very well aware about the latest amendments adopted by the Parliament of Georgia, a law that significantly tightens gambling regulations and bans nearly 1 million people from gambling. The new law also introduces the concept of gambling addict. Citizens who are granted the status of gambling addicts will be banned from playing in Georgia. According to the Minister of Finance, the ban as a whole, will affect up to 1 million citizens, which should reduce the turnover of gambling. To offset this reduction for the budget, the taxes imposed on the sector are rising sharply, as a result of which the budget will have to receive about the same amount of taxes, around 400 million Georgian lari. The new model for regulating gambling is as follows. Taxation rules are completely changing for the online gambling business, in particular gross gaming revenue, GGR. GGR will be charged with 10% tax instead of the distributed profit tax. GGR reflects the difference between the amount of money players wager minus the amount that they win. In addition, returned earnings will be taxed with 2% income tax. In total, the tax base for the gambling sector will increase by 65%, Minister of Finance Lasha Huzishvili said. Starting from July 2020, based on the amendments to the law of Georgia on organizing lotteries, games of chance and other prize games, certain obligations have been identified for the purpose of control of the gambling industry. Additionally, the law identified the right and the framework of implementation and operation of the unified control system by the selected persons. The Revenue Service of Georgia has been obliged to sign a contract on implementation and operation of unified control system for the purpose of monitoring and control of the gambling industry with the selected person. And the selected person is Random Systems International, a company incorporated according to the laws of Malta, and therefore will carry out duties and obligations identified by the law. The selected person shall operate through its subsidiary, Random Systems Georgia, a company incorporated according to the laws of Georgia. So, Forbes Georgia and the Checkpoints have decided to contact Random Systems Company. its managing partners and representatives to check out more how well the regulatory system is presented in Georgia and what are the best practices worldwide.
Mark, thank you so much for your time. We're just on our way to begin our conversation, so appreciate to still e-host you in our Forbes virtual studio, but I hope that quite soon I will have time to personally meet you and host you in our Forbes Georgia studio.
I'd look forward to that. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Tell us about yourself and about RCI itself. Where does it come from? What's your occupation here? So please, let's begin this conversation from this.
All right. So maybe I'll start with a brief description of RSI and sort of how it came to be and what we do. RSI was a company that was really specifically created by Mario Gallia to provide essentially the services that are required by the government of Georgia. So the company's head office is in Malta, but there's a subsidiary that is based in Tbilisi, and the majority of RSI's staff are actually in Georgia, and therefore they're Georgian. We've already increased the number of employees over the past year, and we'll continue to obviously increase the number of staff as the work increases and as we have to deliver the services that we have to deliver. A little bit of what I do in Georgia specifically, I spend most of my time really information sharing with the team to help them not only increase their knowledge of the gaming industry in general, but also to help them understand the new emerging technologies that are being brought into the gambling industry, and also to understand the innovative new games that are being introduced, and not just in Georgia, but really around the world. So I spend a lot of time really mentoring and helping educate the team on the gambling industry in general.
You're talking about some challenges and constant changes happening worldwide industry of gambling. My question in this regards is, can we make some similarity how worldwide industry of gambling is regulated in general?
Sure. And I think that's a very important question, because when we talked to the government of Georgia, it was very clear that they were very interested in making sure that Georgia was on its way to being a well-regulated gambling jurisdiction. And so in general, while there are obviously differences in the laws that are enacted by the different gambling jurisdictions, there are generally two common main things that the regulations focus on. And the first really is, it starts with the licensing process. And that's the work that is done to understand who are the individuals and the companies that are going to be, owners of the gambling companies or providing critical supply components from a gambling perspective. And then, understanding that.
Did I get you correctly that it's a sort of mandatory in some countries, or
licensing?
I mean, the publishing of the ownership, who owns these gambling companies and things like that?
Yes, it needs to be understood, because what happens is there's some level of investigation that goes on to ensure that these individuals and the companies obviously meet the eligibility requirements of that particular country. And here's where things sort of vary a little bit. The degree to which, I guess, those entities are investigated before they're issued the license obviously is going to vary from country to country. And that is something that is unique to the different jurisdictions. But again, it's something that Georgia is doing. And while I say that they're unique and they differ, at the end of the day, they're really very similar. And they're so similar, in fact, that the International Association of Gaming Regulators has created a single form and a single process of how to go through the investigation and actually collect the information and license one of these companies. And this form, it's actually called a multi-jurisdictional licensing form, is one that is used, for example, by major U.S. states like New Jersey, Nevada, and Michigan. So these are large gaming jurisdictions that are using this multi-jurisdictional form. So that's why I say while they differ a little bit, at the end of the day, they're very similar. I think.
Yeah,
Sorry.
please go ahead. Just formulate and resume your answer, and then I will follow. Please.
And then I was going to say the second aspect of regulations really is where we're focusing on as RSI, and that is the technical and the operational piece, right? So again, in a well-regulated jurisdiction, these are very similar. The technical requirements are very similar. Why? Because the products being deployed are very similar across all the jurisdictions.
Just
right,
to conclude this part of conversation, can we suggest or how well Georgian gambling industry is regulated?
So we're well on our way to becoming a well-regulated jurisdiction. And actually, it's great that you asked me that question, because it really tees up that well-regulated jurisdictions are ones in which the regulator is having ongoing conversations and consulting with the operators and with suppliers, with the industry, and really making sure that they are enacting regulations to provide the appropriate level of gambling oversight, but also to identify ways where that oversight can be provided in the most efficient and cost-effective way, right? So this allows really for that innovation to occur in terms of how the regulations are met, as opposed to telling somebody exactly how you should do something, right? And that's exactly what's going on in Georgia today. The other thing that's important to understand is you can't just, all of a sudden go from this level of oversight to this level of oversight. There has to be a gradual increase. It has to be worked upon in a way that allows the industry to absorb the regulations and to continually improve. And that's exactly what's going on in Georgia. So I think, all in all, Georgia is well on its way, and I think some of the aspects related to monitoring, for example, that have been implemented and which will be implemented in land-based next are some of the things that you will see as tangible proof that this continuum continues to move forward.
Last amendments and last changes, what has happened for the gambling industry in Georgia, they're already on, and just partially some of them will be on track since 1st of March, if I'm correct. Is this in favor of, and definitely positive for the industry itself? And at the same time, is this a part of the story when you are talking about that Georgia is on its way to be among those where market is well regulated, definitely?
Absolutely, and at the end of the day, really what's important, regardless of the jurisdiction, is that the gambling industry really relies on players trusting that the games they're playing, are fair, that they're operated with a high level of integrity, and that really they provide every player, regardless of who that player is, with an equal opportunity to win. That's really based on the consistent application of game rules. If you strip that away, if you take that trust away, then the gaming industry within the jurisdiction will suffer. So really what I believe the Georgian government wants to do is to support the gambling industry in Georgia. They want it to grow, and they want it to do so in what I will call a socially responsible manner. And to do that, you have to have gambling laws and technical requirements that have been enacted. The approach that has to be taken is one that has to be, in my opinion, pragmatic and measured and really supportive of the industry, while again moving towards that goal of becoming a highly regulated industry.
I'm fully supportive for the last suggestion you made, but at the same time, if I will put myself on the place of the investor or owner of the gambling industry or just company, whatever it is, how can we say that reforms, which were, I mean, the last amendments and changes happened in Georgian legislation, there is no predictability, Mark, at the same time, but it happened in a very sudden way. And at the same time, how can we evaluate how this will reflect on investors involved in this industry? Because the changes happened in a sudden way. And you are very much aware that investors do not like surprises happening in the legislation that way. So I'm talking about things happening suddenly and with less predictability, even for the gambling industry. Please.
I think, look, bottom line, Georgia is not the first and certainly won't be the last country to enact stricter gambling legislation. I mean, I think what the government is trying to do is to really protect its citizens. And it's in my experience that legislators and regulators and even operators and suppliers all agree that having some level of responsibility around gambling is important to protect vulnerable individuals. So the fact that these reforms were enacted quickly, it's again showing the government's desire to improve the gaming industry, to protect the individuals, and at the same point in time, to make sure that the gaming industry within Georgia continues to grow, but grow again in what I would call that socially responsible and sustainable manner. I think what's really important here is, and what I've heard in conversations with the industry in Georgia, is that there was a lot of maybe concern that this was going to impact investments. There was maybe concern that
correct. I confirm that.
Raising the minimum gambling age might seem like it would have a detrimental impact on the business, but the odds are, in fact, that it will not, and other countries have done the same thing. I've heard, there's going to be a ban on advertising, and that also is going to be seen as a negative for the industry. But in reality, many other countries have banned or have significantly restricted advertising. I mean, this includes countries like Belgium and Italy and Spain and United Kingdom, and the business continues to grow there. So really, from an RSI perspective, we understand what the government's decision is and why they made it, and at this point, we don't really believe it will have a negative impact. But I will tell you this, if we see that it is, for whatever reason, we will work with the government to help resolve those negative impacts. And then the last point I will make that goes back to your comment about investors don't like change and they want stability. I think it's very important for everybody in this industry, and especially in Georgia, to understand that as the gambling industry continues to change in Georgia, it continues to grow, it continues to evolve, so too will the laws and the regulations. I mean, they will, out of necessity, also evolve to provide the appropriate oversight and to help the government achieve its goal of a well-regulated jurisdiction. So, that's what we're here for. That's what RSI will continue to do, which is to provide our expertise to the government and to enable this to occur, and to help, obviously, the gaming industry in Georgia grow.
Okay, then. Till the next meeting, I'm more than sure that you will definitely give me a call while landing to Tbilisi. So, can't wait to see you in person here in Forbes Georgia office.
I look forward to it as well.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
So, as mentioned and agreed, as soon as Mark will be back to Georgia, and hopefully he will avoid all the possible inconveniences due to the COVID, I will be more than happy, together with you and Elena, to meet him in a face and talk a bit more about the future regulations and the reform itself performed by the company and Ministry of Finance of Georgia, together with the Revenue Service of Georgia. So, the floor is yours, David. Thanks and good luck.
Thank you for this interview, George. We will follow how the Georgian gambling business adapts to the new law. And it's time to show the way Georgia presents new brands to the world and trade partners. Winestone jewelry manufactured by Wine Diamond will be exported to Ukraine. Tamna Abuladze, the founder of the company, declares that they will initially send 30 pieces of jewelry to Kiev in about a week. Meet Tamna Abuladze and her Wine Diamonds.
It's not new that Georgia is the homeland of wine, but Georgia may soon acquire the status of the first winestone jewelry producing country on the world market. Until Tamna Abuladze, a wine expert by profession, came up with this idea and became the first master of jewelry made of winestone, no one in Georgia really thought that tartrate, which wine makes in a pitcher as a result of temperature shock, can become a jewelry material. Despite the love of wine, at first this idea sounded unbelievable to many. She then dared to share the idea with other winemakers, but they did not believe in it. However, there was one winemaker who gave the author the first raw Kahetian green, Katsiteli and Saperavi stone, and so began the story of Wine Diamond.
Wine Diamond
appeared during the pandemic when one of the winemakers ordered me something impossible. I thought I would make an order out of winestone. When I said it out loud to a few winemakers, everyone told me it was impossible to make jewelry out of winestone. The color of the jewelry made of the winestone depends on the grape variety. The creation process is quite complicated and delicate. Here, everything is done by hand. The winestone is very tender. It should not lose its shape. It should not be polished. It should not lose its shine. It should get the shape you want. It is very hard work because one wrong action can ruin the whole thing. I cannot use tools. Here, everything happens with a finger. I have to feel where I have to stop through my finger sensors because in case of a lot of pressure, I cannot get the desired shape. Wine Diamonds has already created over 300 pieces of jewelry. A new design is added to the assortment every week. And finally, the brand's collection will combine jewelry made of winestones from all the regions of Georgia. That's not all. The founder of Wine Diamond has another brand of Emotsia wines, the concept of which is no less unique. There are products in production here, such as wine tasting bags, pins made in the analogy of Georgian grapes, and more. This is one of my proudest products. This is a drop of frozen wine seen under a microscope. This is red wine yeast. This is what it looks like under a microscope. I am the first in Georgia to produce scarves with a similar print. The brand strives to advance more. The world market has already met Wine Diamond and Emotsia Wines jewelry. The first Georgian wine, Emotion, was released in France. But as the chief jewelry expert says, this is not enough. The company has big plans ahead. Since the first winestone jewelry was first created in Georgia, I really want to introduce Georgia to the world as the pioneer country. Wine Diamond has already proved that nothing is impossible. Now the main thing is for the world to know that the first winestone jewelry was created here in Georgia.
It's time, I think, to look at the week in business. Natiko Taktakishvili has prepared the bulletin for you.
Home appliance company Beko will open 3 branches in the regions of Georgia this year. As the director of Beko Georgia, Mehmet Melek, notes, new branches will be located in Zugdidi, Poti and Kardabani. The investment volume totals to $500,000 Georgian lari. According to him, Beko will employ an additional 8 people in the new facilities, and during the summer season, each branch will add 2 seasonal workers. The company declares that Beko had a 25-26% increase in retail sales in 2021 compared to 2019, while the growth amounted to 40% compared to 2020. Koda works on the production of BioX. As Zurab Cuculashvili, director of the company, told BMG, they are working on this idea for 5 years, but the pandemic has disrupted the processes, though they now intend to resume the work. We plan to feed the chicken with organic food to get bio-eggs, he said. According to him, 10-15% of the production will be replaced by organic products, in which about $500,000 will be invested. As for the price, according to Zurab Cuculashvili, the product price will be quite expensive. The poultry company Koda produces about 65 million eggs a year. Better Butter, a Georgian butter producing company, has appeared on the market, offering customers 6 different types of hazelnut butter. The company launched a small production in Batumi with an investment of 30,000 Georgian lari. As for sales, Better Butter products are sold online as well as in several stores in Tbilisi and Batumi. As a co-founder of the company, Nina Sharadze declares the price of Georgian butter ranges from 14 to 29 Georgian lari. We decided to produce butter after we saw that we do not have a wide choice of Georgian butter on the market. We launched the enterprise in June, and at this time we offer 6 different types of products to our customers. So far, we are not largely represented and we only support 4 stores in Batumi and Tbilisi in total. We plan to expand production in the near future because the existing enterprise line does not allow us to increase productivity, said Nina Sharadze. Georgian snail farm Nadi Group plans to export both live and processed snails to Euro countries from August this year, including Italy, France, and Spain. The company's founder, Mirab Nadaraya, declares that the company can export over 300 tons of snails to Euro market from August, after Nadi Group launches a semi-finished snail product factory in Senaki municipality. Snail farm Nadi Group is operating on the Georgian market from 2018. It currently manages a farm located on 40 hectares and produces 60-70 tons of snails annually. Redco opened 3 new residential complexes in Gudauri. These residential complexes are part of the project New Gudauri and includes 852 premium class apartments. The total investment in the complex amounts to 85 million Georgian lari. The project was implemented with the support of TBC Bank. Foreign architects worked on the design of the project. Infrastructure of the complex includes indoor and outdoor swimming pools, spa and fitness centers, open and closed parking lots, restaurants and bars. Customers of TBC Concept have the opportunity to enjoy a special condition on a mortgage loan in Georgian lari until the end of January if they purchase an apartment in the project New Gudauri. The project New Gudauri includes a total of 26 residential complexes with 5,000 rooms. Upon completion of the project, the number of rooms will increase to 10,000. The total investment of the project is 200 million Georgian lari. The complex should be finished by 2023. Georgian Airways is sold for $150 million. Georgian business brokerage founded by Roman Bokeria, the former director of Georgian Airways, is working to find a new investor for the airlines. Georgian Airways is in the process of insolvency rehabilitation since December 31st and owes a debt of more than 175 million Georgian lari, while its assets amount to 21 million Georgian lari. According to Roman Bokeria, as of the legislation, a foreign party cannot own a majority stake in the Georgian national airline, so only 49% of the company can be sold through a deal. General Director of Tbilisi Central declares that in 2021 the company's revenues returned to pre-pandemic levels by 70%, but due to increased utility bills, operating expenses are grown as well, so the company has finished last year with a loss. As Levan Karalashvili explains, utility expenditures have increased by almost 80% for the company. Despite the loss, Tbilisi Central has positive expectations for 2022. According to their calculations, the sector will be able to fully recover by 2023.
And before we say goodbye, we can continue with teasing in Forbes, Georgia. The Forbes team tells you about Tegeta Holding, its history and plans. Also, you can find many more interesting analyses in a new January issue. As usual, Mariam Adamia tells you more.
The story of One Baghdad Boy wasn't really a fairy tale, it was a real life story before it hit the cover of Forbes Georgia, thus proving once again that in the end hard work paid off with a bit of luck and the correct finding. The original parts of the Hungarian girls in Soviet Georgia were a field of fiction. Today this is a reality which in its time was followed by the tire business. Then there was a partnership with several European brands and gaining the full trust of German vendors and partnering with them. In just a few years, Tegeta Holding will have a market capitalization of $1 billion. That's why the January issue of Forbes Georgia tells you about the industry builder and one of the most outstanding Georgian entrepreneurs who is rapidly growing Tegeta Georgian company throughout the region. So, Temur Kohodze and his Tegeta from the beginning to the past.
In the new issue of Forbes Georgia, you will read Shark Tank Georgia, which gathered experienced Georgian investors to support small and medium-sized businesses during the pandemic period. They were able to accumulate impressive statistics in a short period of time. Up to 50 participants, $1.5 million real investments, and 14 funded ideas. This is not just a TV show, it is an active force involved in the development of real businesses. As for the leaders, in this month's issue, we count the largest oil importers by owners and assets. You'll get acquainted with the indicators of Georgia in the 2021 rankings. We name the biggest players in the country's TV advertising market in terms of revenue for the 9 months of 2021. What is the impact of VAT on price increases? How are fuel prices set in Georgia? And what are the last year's summaries and challenges for 2022?
Well, that's all for today. We will see you next Sunday at 10 p.m. sharp. Till then, follow us on BM.G and Forbes.G and take care.
The Checkpoint is presented by GM Pharma, the first international multinational pharmaceutical company in Georgia. GM Pharma, to serve those who need it most.